Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Brittany and this is Glory in the Mundane. So today I want to talk a little bit about the things that I wish I had known as a brand new homeschooler. So I feel like once we have been doing this homeschool thing for a few years and we have some experience under our belt, we figure out all of these tricks and just these little tips that would have helped so much going into it. And I know some of it is just experience, some of it you can't possibly learn from somebody else. You just have to go through it in order to get there. But I'm hoping that maybe this will help somebody who is just starting out, and maybe it'll cause someone to pause and rethink how they are entering into their homeschool. So let's get started. The first thing that I would tell myself as a brand new homeschooler is that there is no one right way to homeschool. I think the most common thing that I have heard from other homeschoolers is, we all say it, is that when we first started homeschooling, we believed that homeschooling was school at home, that you just copied what the public schools did and just did it at home. And every homeschooler knows that that is not what you do. I think I've mentioned it in one of my other videos. Yeah, I definitely did start with the traditional school at home approach. And now looking back, it was just so miserable. And so I'm really glad now that we have moved into a much more relaxed approach, and I feel like we are really communicating better, and I'm listening to my kids more, and I can see what they actually need instead of just trying to shove information down their throat. We actually enjoy learning. So I think one of my advice to someone who was starting out and is considering doing school at home is to explore your options. There are so many different ways to homeschool, so take the time to learn about yourself and about your kids. And whenever you start schooling, if it's not working, be willing to change. The worst thing that you could do is to stay in a homeschooling style that just doesn't work for your family. So the second thing, and this one was a hard one for me to accept, is you will not teach them everything, and that's okay. So the beautiful thing about homeschooling is that we get to build our life around learning. Ideally, with homeschooling, you would teach them how to learn, and eventually they do get to a point where they are learning independently. And so you would plant those seeds of learning and loving to learn, and so eventually that they would take off on their own. And you give them those basic foundational tools and let them run with it, and in time they will have learned everything that they need to learn. Even if you don't finish a book every year, you know, there have been a couple of science books that we just never ended up finishing, and that's okay. He still knows more about, even though we never finished our birds book. You know, my oldest still knows way more about birds than he did before, and were he more interested in birds, I'm sure he would have learned more about them, but he got his basic foundation, and now we're moving on. So not to stress too much about needing to teach them everything is the big thing, because you will drive yourself absolutely insane trying to jam-pack your days full of all of the different things, especially when you start comparing yourself to other homeschoolers who are doing like Latin and combining US and world history and doing world geography and US geography at the same time, and all of the random obscure subjects that you could possibly come up with, and their days are so jam-packed full, and you look at their schedules and think, oh my goodness, I'm missing something. You're not. Typically they have too much. Or that's what drives them, and that's what their student thrives on. You don't have to do that though. And it took me a while to learn that it's okay to keep it simple, and that's actually where we thrive the most. So the third thing, and this is a controversial one, some people would not agree with me on this one, but the third thing that I have learned is that grade levels really don't matter. They are not an accurate representation of where every student is at. One student may be a little bit more advanced in math and a little bit less advanced in, say, history, and vice versa. And that's okay. At the very end of their education, they will most likely be caught up to where they need to be. If not, then you can push a little bit harder, and it's not that big of a deal. The whole point is that you take it slow enough to keep them caught up. That your school is about your kids. It's not about the state. It's not about your neighbors or the other people in the homeschool groups or your parents or your friends who homeschool. It's about you and your kids, and making sure your kids get the best education that they can, and the best education is the one that they're going to learn under. So don't feel pressured that you have to push really hard to get them from moving from second grade into third grade, and that they're falling behind in one subject and you just can't seem to get there, and now you have to do summer school, and oh my goodness, what are you going to do? Don't do that. Just keep pushing forward. Take the breaks when you need them. Take the breaks when they need them. And eventually it will all come out in the wash. It is not as big of a deal as you think that it is. I promise. They will get there. And if occasionally, maybe one summer you really do feel like they need to be doing summer school, it's not that big of a deal. You do 1 hour of school a day. I stressed myself out so much because my 11-year-old did get behind because he is a little bit slower in learning math, and he fell behind about a half a year, and he just needed extra time to get caught up, and that made me feel so much shame. And that's just silly. There's nothing wrong with him. He just needed a little bit extra time. He would have been in the same situation in the public school, except for only worse, because they would have made him push through when he wasn't quite ready. So go slow, take your time, make sure your kids are getting the attention that they need, and you'll be fine. I feel like I keep saying you'll be fine, but I promise you'll be fine. So the fourth thing that I would tell myself as a new homeschooler is look into year-round schooling sooner. So we moved into year-round schooling fairly quickly, but even last year when we did year-round schooling, we took 6 weeks off, and this year we're doing 4. So his summer started at the very end of May, and we will start back school on July 1st. That is our plan for when we're starting. He will get a week off whenever he goes to church camp, but the whole thing with year-round schooling is that you get intentional breaks more throughout the year. So, there's been tons of research that has shown that taking a shorter break in the summer actually helps with their retention of what they have learned the previous year. It also allows for you to take breaks throughout the middle of the year, which is really great because everybody else is in school. And so normally it's actually the best time to go do things because things are cheaper and, it's less crowded. And you can also gauge when y'all are feeling a little bit burnt out and you need a break. And that always happens to us. Like every 6 weeks, I pretty much plan every 6 weeks that we're going to take at least a week off, because by the time we hit that 6-week mark, we are just burnt out and we need a break. And so normally taking that week off after those 6 weeks really does help to rejuvenate us. And by the time that week is over, we're just ready to get back after it. And so I wish I would have started year-round schooling a little bit sooner than I did, but you live and you learn. And the last thing that I would tell myself as a new homeschooler is to prioritize discipleship over education. So education is extremely important. Don't get me wrong. You know, they need to learn their basics. But if you are drilling math equations and you are quizzing them on history and science, and you know they're filling out worksheets every day, and you're never sitting down and having discussions with them or talking about deep things or really just having those conversations with them, you're missing out on so much, because so much of what they will learn and they will actually use in their life is not educational. They will actually learn, especially as Christian parents, the things that we talk about with our kids, especially about God and about Christ, the things that we discuss with them and we explain to them, those things are going to build the foundation of their life. I mean, they're going to need basic math, sure. They're going to need to know good grammar. They're going to need to know basic history and probably science, and they will need to know the information for all of whatever career path that they choose. But when you're talking about the most important things, the character building things, the faith building things, those things are what is captured in those smaller moments, the moments that you can't plan into a school day, that are provoked by a question, by a piece of scripture that you're reading, or a life experience that happens, and taking the time to pause school to have those deep, in-depth conversations is the very best thing that you can do to educate your children. Oh, and I have one bonus thing that I want to tack on at the end. The last thing that I would tell myself, because this was a really hard one for me, was that not everyone is going to approve of your homeschooling. Do it anyway and enjoy it anyway, because the people who matter, they'll come around. Either they'll support you in the beginning, or when they see that your kids are thriving, then they'll come around. And it's not really between you and everybody else. It's between you and probably your husband and the Lord and your children. It's about your family, and it's about glorifying God in and through your children's education. You don't have to convince everybody that homeschooling is awesome and that it's great. They'll see it whenever your kids are doing well. I had the hardest time because there were a few select people in my life who were not super supportive of my homeschooling. And that was really hard for me, because I had done so much research and I knew that this was the best option. This was the right thing for our family. And I wanted so bad for everybody else to be on board and to be excited with me. And those people that truly love me and love my kids, they did come around, and now they are some of the most supportive people I have in our life when it comes to homeschooling. And so, you know, don't worry about what other people are going to say. Just enjoy this time. It is precious, and it is so short, and it goes by so fast. So there you have it. That is everything that I would tell myself as a brand new homeschooler. So if you are a new homeschooler, I would love to hear in the comments about what you are most looking forward to with homeschooling. And if you are a seasoned homeschooler, I would love to know what you would tell your new homeschooling self. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you liked it, I would love for you to give it a thumbs up. And if you are new here, I hope you will consider subscribing. I do videos every Tuesday and Friday all about homeschooling, homemaking, motherhood, and biblical womanhood. I hope y'all have a fantastic day, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye.